I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching Eagle News International. On tonight's headlines. The U.S. announced a $1.1 billion arms package for Taiwan, vowing to keep boosting the island's defenses as tensions soar with Beijing, which warned Washington of countermeasures. The South China Sea and key regional issues will be included in the discussions among President Marcos Jr. and his counterparts in Indonesia and Singapore. Thousands of people were ordered to evacuate their homes in Northern California as the wildfires spread rapidly across more than 1,000 acres in extremely hot conditions. IAEA Director General Rafael Mariano Grossi returned to Vienna after visiting the Russian-occupied Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in Ukraine. First in our news, the U.S. announced a $1.1 billion arms package for Taiwan, vowing to keep boosting the island's defenses as tensions soar with Beijing, which warned Washington of countermeasures. The package, the largest for Taiwan, approved under President Joe Biden's administration, includes $665 million for contractor support to maintain and upgrade a Raytheon early radar warning system in operation since 2013 that would warn Taiwan about an incoming attack. Taiwan will also spend $355 million on 60 Harpoon Block II missiles, which can track and sink incoming vessels if China launches an assault by water. The deal also includes $85.6 million for more than 100 Sidewinder missiles, a mainstay of Western militaries for their air-to-air firepower. China, calling Taiwan an inalienable part of its territory, urged the U.S. to immediately revoke the arms sales. It sends wrong signals to Taiwan independent separatist forces and severely jeopardizes China-U.S. relations and peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait, according to Liu Pengyu, spokesman for the Chinese embassy in Washington. He also said China will resolutely take legitimate and necessary countermeasures in light of the development of the situation. The world's most populous country has joined the Aircraft Carrier Club. The country debuted its first locally made aircraft carrier, a milestone in government efforts to reduce its dependence on foreign arms and counter China's growing military assertiveness in the region.
आज भारत विश्व के उन देशों में शामिल हो गया है जो स्वदेशी तकनीक से इतने विशाल एयरक्राफ्ट कैरियर का निर्माण करता है.
The tricolor and the ensign.
The outlay comes at a time of increasing concern among military top brass over the strategic challenge posed by China's increasing presence in the Indian Ocean. Last month, New Delhi joined Washington in raising security concerns when neighbor Sri Lanka allowed a port visit by a Chinese research vessel accused of spying activities. India and the U.S. are both members of the so-called Quad, a security alliance focused on the Indo-Pacific and aimed at providing a more substantive counterweight to China's rising military and economic power. In other news, President Bongbong Marcos Jr. is scheduled to meet with Filipino communities during his state visits to Indonesia and Singapore, announced by Malacanang today. The meeting will serve as a platform for Marcos to assure the overseas Filipino workers that their welfare and protection are of utmost importance, according to Press Secretary Trixie Cruz Angeles in a Facebook post. The Department of Foreign Affairs said the South China Sea and key regional issues will also be included in the discussions among President Marcos Jr. and his counterparts in Indonesia and Singapore. Marcos is embarking on his inaugural state visit to the two ASEAN nations on September 4 to the 7th. He will meet with President Joko Widodo of Indonesia and Singaporean President Halimah Yacob and Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong. Marcos will also embark on his This will be on September 4 to the 7th. He will first visit Indonesia on September 4 to 6 and proceed to Singapore on September 6 to the 7th. Indonesia is home to about 8,000 Filipinos, while Singapore hosts more than 200,000 overseas Filipinos. President Marcos is set to meet with the members of the Filipino communities in Indonesia and Singapore on September 4 and 6 respectively. Participants are required to register online as walk-ins will not be entertained. And for those who will not be able to attend, the events will be live streamed. In tonight's other news, International Atomic Energy Agency Director General Rafael Mariano Grossi returned to Vienna after visiting the Russian-occupied Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in Ukraine. Let's listen in.
It is obvious that there is a lot of fighting in the region in general, in this part of Ukraine. We have been seeing military activity around the plant, and I was able to see myself and my team impact holes, markings on buildings of shelling. So which means that the physical integrity of the facility has been violated not once but several times. Because in Zaporizhzhia we have this unique, unprecedented situation where you have a Ukrainian nuclear power plant which is controlled by the Russian occupying forces, creating a situation whereby you have a cohabitation of the operators, people, the Ukrainian people, employees, and professional experts that have been working there, and there's also presence from Russian nuclear experts and also military forces. We are establishing a permanent presence on site, this time with two of our experts, which will be continuing the work.
Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov has urged the international community to put pressure on the Ukrainian side so it stops endangering the European continent by shelling. Peskov said Russia saw the IAEA visit as necessary and had been waiting for this mission for a long time, insisting it would ensure its safety in the face of constant risks. The IAEA has stationed 2 permanent monitors at Zaporizhzhia to collect real-time information that can be reported to Vienna, according to Grossi. Attacks at Europe's biggest nuclear power plant have increased since the beginning of July, with Ukraine and Russian officials blaming each other for the strikes. Meanwhile, Russia's Gazprom said its key gas pipeline to Europe won't reopen as planned, moving the region a step closer to blackouts, rationing, and a severe recession. The stoppage began on Wednesday and reduced gas deliveries via the key pipeline that runs from Russia to northern Germany to zero. Gazprom had said the work on a compressor unit was necessary, but Germany's Federal Network Agency said the decision was technically incomprehensible. Europe is facing soaring energy prices after Russia slashed gas deliveries to the region amid soaring tensions following its February invasion of Ukraine. Germany, which is particularly dependent on Russian gas, has accused Moscow of using energy as a weapon. As winter approaches, European consumers are bracing for huge power bills, with some countries like France warning that rationing is a possibility. Meanwhile, German Finance Minister Christian Lindner announced that the G7 group of countries will move towards the implementation of a price cap on Russian oil imports in order to stop Moscow from raking in huge profits from soaring energy prices. Take a look.
Und aus diesem Grund planen wir die Einführung einer Preisausnahme von den Dienstleistungsverboten. Das bedeutet, auch Schiffsversicherungen für russische Ölexporte können weiter erbracht werden, aber unter der Voraussetzung, dass russisches Öl und Erdölprodukte unter einem bestimmten Preis gekauft werden. Wir wollen also die Einnahmen Russlands einschränken und gleichzeitig den wirtschaftlichen Schaden für unsere Gesellschaften reduzieren.
Ahead of Friday's decision, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov sounded a clear warning. He said the adoption of a price cap will lead to a significant destabilization of the oil markets and force American and European consumers to pay the price. And Russia's Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak, meanwhile, is warning that Moscow would simply not supply oil and petroleum products to companies or states that impose sanctions, that according to Russian news agencies. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka's deposed former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa returned to the country 7 weeks after he fled amid the country's worst ever economic crisis. Rajapaksa fled Sri Lanka under military escort in mid-July after unarmed crowds stormed his official residence following months of angry demonstrations, blaming him for the nation's unprecedented economic crisis. The 73-year-old leader arrived from Bangkok via Singapore on a commercial flight, ending his 52-day self-imposed exile. Singapore declined to extend Rajapaksa's short-term visa, and he traveled to Thailand in August. But authorities in Bangkok instructed him not to step out of his hotel for his own safety. Rajapaksa's younger brother Basil, the former finance minister, met with the now President Wickremesinghe last month and requested protection to allow the deposed leader to return. Security at his private home was also stepped up, officials said, adding that he was expected to first visit the family residence. Sri Lanka has endured months of shortages of crucial goods, including food, fuel, and medicines, along with lengthy electricity blackouts and skyrocketing inflation after running out of foreign currency to finance essential imports. His government was accused of introducing unsustainable tax cuts that drove up government debt and exacerbated the economic crisis. The leader of Myanmar's military junta will travel to Russia next week for economic talks, according to state media. This will be in the Southeast Asian nation. Min Aung Hlaing's visit will come as both governments face diplomatic isolation. Moscow for its February invasion of Ukraine, and Naypyidaw for a military coup last year. He will attend the Eastern Economic Forum in the far eastern city of Vladivostok, the global new light of Myanmar said. Representatives from China, India, Japan, Kazakhstan, and other countries will also attend. Min Aung Hlaing is unlikely to be invited to the ASEAN Leaders Summit in Phnom Penh in November, with the bloc frustrated over a lack of progress on resolving the country's political crisis. Since the putsch that ousted Aung San Suu Kyi's civilian government in February last year, Myanmar has faced Western sanctions and a downgrade in relations. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken denounced a new 3-year sentence imposed on Myanmar's ousted elected leader Aung San Suu Kyi and urged further pressure on the country's junta. Take a look. He said, "We strongly condemn the Burma military regime's unjust sentencing of Aung San Suu Kyi to 3 more years of prison, including hard labor," Blinken said, using Myanmar's former name. "We must work together to hold the regime accountable for its escalating violence and repression of democratically elected leaders in Burma." The latest sentence, handed down behind closed doors, takes the total jail time the Nobel laureate and democracy figurehead is facing to 2 decades. The new sentence was over purported electoral fraud in 2020 polls that her party won by a landslide. The military deposed and detained her the following February and has piled a series of charges, including corruption, that her supporters say are trumped up. Meanwhile, Myanmar's ruling military jailed a former British ambassador and her husband for a year each for breaching immigration rules, according to a junta spokesman. Vicky Bowman, who served as envoy from 2002 to 2006, was detained last month for failing to declare she was living at an address different from the one listed on her foreigner's registration certificate. Tin Lin, of Myanmar national and prominent artist, was arrested for helping his wife resign reside at an address different to their registered home in commercial hub Yangon. Bowman and her husband were arrested the day before London announced new sanctions on companies it said had helped raise funds for the military during its 2017 crackdown on the mostly Muslim Rohingya minority. Tin Lin took part in a 1988 student uprising against a former junta and later spent years underground. After he was freed in 2004, he came to the attention of then Ambassador Bowman for a series of paintings he completed in jail using smuggled materials. She persuaded him to let her take the politically sensitive artwork which depicted his life behind bars for his own security. He later proposed to her during a holiday in Britain, and the pair married in 2006. The news continues. You're on Eagle News. We'll be back.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. May lalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
I can never get used to that. Yung sumasalubong ako ng casket at makikita mo na lang siya, pangalan na lang.
OWA Administrator Arnel Ignacio sasagutin ang mga mainit na issue na kinakaharap ng OFWs. Punto por punto, sasagutin.
I think we should slowly veer away from the narrative na lagi itong tungkol sa kawawa.
Kasama si Attorney Sal Panelo dito sa Counterpoint. Miyerkules, alas 10:30 ng gabi. Dito lang sa Net25.
Alam ko marami nakakalkal sa akin pero hindi ko akalain ito kakalkalin niyo.
Welcome sa aming bagong tahanan. Say hi, Tami.
Hi! Bossing Poleng, meron akong kwento.
Yay! Story time!
Itago nyo na lang ako sa pangalang Jojo.
Jojo nga po pala. Boyfriend ko.
Good evening po.
Ikaw!
Puyok mo nga dyan!
May bago tayong tambayan.
Dito lang sa Net25.
Panalo tayo pag together. Walang talo pag together. Let's get together. Sa Net25.
Hello mga ka-moments! New season, new set, fresher look, new stories on its 16th year ng Moments! Dalawa po sa miyembro ng aming pamilya ang aking makakabonding.
Sino yung pinaka-paboritong mong anak?
Ay! I knew it! Tita Juday has been telling me na uy, crush ka ni Christopher or ni Aries, that was his character name sa serye. Pagling ko, ando na siya, sabi ng mga cringy, sabi ng mga anak ko. At hando po namin sa inyo ang talaga namang heartfelt chikahan and helpful tips na hindi lamang pang mommies dahil ang Moments hindi lang mommy-friendly, kundi pang buong family na!
Moments. talo tayo pag together. Walang talo pag together. Let's stand together. Sa Net 25.
The last Soviet leader, Mikhail Gorbachev, will be laid to rest Saturday in a Moscow ceremony, but without the fanfare of a state funeral and with the glaring absence of President Vladimir Putin. With Russia isolated by its military campaign in Ukraine, no foreign leaders are expected to attend what will be a relatively low-key affair to remember one of the great political figures of the 20th century. Gorbachev, affectionately known in the West as Gorby, died on Tuesday at the age of 91. Following a serious and long illness, according to the hospital where he was treated. In power between 1985 and 1991, Gorbachev sought to transform the Soviet Union with democratic reforms, but also eventually triggered its demise. In Russia, many blame him for letting go of the Soviet Empire and with it the country's position as a global power. But in the West, Gorbachev is viewed as the man who ended the Cold War and lifted the Iron Curtain. Achievements recognized by a Nobel Peace Prize in 1990. And messages of shock and solidarity poured in from around the world after a man tried to shoot Argentine Vice President Christina Kirchner at point-blank range.
Frente al domicilio de la vicepresidenta, un hombre apuntó con un arma de fuego a su cabeza y gatilló. Cristina permanece con vida porque por una razón todavía no confirmada técnicamente, el arma que contaba con 5 balas no se disparó pese a haber sido gatillada.
Of course, we are aware and we're shocked by the reports that we have seen. And of course, it is crucial that an investigation is held into what has happened and what happened, how it happened, etc. So we are...
Kirchner, 69, survived the attack outside her Buenos Aires home after a loaded handgun aimed directly at her face at close range apparently failed to go off. The dramatic incident was captured on video, as you see here. Footage of the incident showed a man pointing a handgun directly at Kirchner. The incident took place in Buenos Aires' upscale Recoleta neighborhood. The man in custody was identified as 35-year-old Fernando Andre Sabag Montiel, a Brazilian man who has an Argentine mother. He had previously been arrested for illegal weapons possession, according to police sources, quoted by the Telam news agency. Police were investigating whether the attacker had acted alone. A case of aggravated homicide has been opened. Hundreds of supporters have gathered every night since August 22, when Argentine prosecutors announced they would seek a 12-year sentence against Kirchner and lifetime ban from politics in an ongoing graft case. Now, Chileans will vote on Sunday on whether to adopt a new constitution and shift from a market-driven society to a more welfare-based one. The new constitution also proposes a universal health system in which everyone pays compulsory contributions into the public purse. Take a look.
Hoy día las personas pueden elegir entre disponer con su cotización legal, su 7%, enterarlo en el sector público, recibir los beneficios a través del sector público, o enterarlo en el sector privado, recibir los beneficios a través. Eso se termina y por lo tanto de llegar a operar esta nueva constitución y ponerse en práctica este nuevo sistema, se pierde la posibilidad de elegir. Todas las personas tienen que trasladarse forzosamente a la opción pública de previsión y tienen que...
New constitution describes Chile as a social democratic state of law and proposes a change to the existing bicameral Congress. Currently, the Senate is tasked with perfecting the work of the Chamber of Deputies. The new constitution envisages disbanding the Senate and replacing it with a Chamber of the Regions. It would be an asymmetric Congress with a more powerful Chamber of Deputies that would create laws and a body representing the regions that will only oversee see certain relevant bills. Detractors fear this would strip Parliament of some of its powers and leave too much in the hands of the President. The new constitution would make housing a right, meaning Congress would need to find ways to make up the shortfall with affordable housing. And chief among the concerns of voters, though, is the prominence given to the country's indigenous peoples, who make up close to 13% of the 19 million population. Thousands of people were ordered to evacuate their homes in Northern California as the wildfires spread rapidly across the more than 1,000 acres in extremely hot conditions. Now, footage from a local ABC affiliate news channel showed several buildings ablaze in the so-called Mill Fire, which the 6Q County Fire Department warned was growing at a dangerous rate of spread. Towns including Weed Lake, Shastina, and Edgewood were placed under mandatory evacuation orders. Children from a local high school were bussed to safety, and a large animal and livestock evacuation shelter was also set up. Immediate threat to life. This is a lawful order to leave now. The area is lawfully closed to public access according to the evacuation order. Siskiyou is part of a largely forested and relatively less populous region of Northern California that has been hit badly by wildfires in recent years. Scientists say global warming, which is being driven chiefly by the unchecked burning of fossil fuel, is making natural weather variations more extreme. Meanwhile, Government Tate Reeves, MEMA, is talking regarding about the Jackson, Mississippi ongoing crisis. The 150,000 residents of Jackson, the capital of the southern U.S. state of Mississippi, is enduring a fourth straight day without clean running water. Take a look.
FEMA's support will play a foundational role in our state's capacity to respond effectively to this unprecedented crisis. Recognition of this emergency on the national level will positively impact our ability to bring relief to the city and to the citizens of Jackson. We've got more work to do, but again, we're going to continue to work every single day, day and night, to get this resolved.
President Biden did swiftly approve the disaster declaration, which is going to give us a lot of resources and flexibility to make sure that we are being able to take care of the immediate crisis.
We have repairs that are ongoing for many of them, but as we said, there are a number of issues at this plant, and we have continued work that will need to occur.
And the bleach is to help kill some of the germs. So I take my bleach, get a cap, not even quite a cap full, and just drop it in the water. And that way it'll help kill whatever germs that's in the water, and it won't affect my dishes as I eat out of my dishes. Just wait. And I'm glad I waited, but this is the brown, this is the color of it.
Situation at my home, the water is running very slowly. It's a horrible situation in the entire city of Jackson, you know, not just one individual. And I blame the city council, the governor, and the mayor, because they're all in confusion and no one seems to know how to solve the problem. You have several elderly people in your neighborhood, and I go out and try to collect to help them as well, because they don't have transportation, and you're only getting 2 cases per site. So that causes me to have to go to several different sites in the area and get the water and bring back home to them, because they need to be okay as well.
Now, lines can be seen forming around the water distribution center throughout the area. The U.S. Army is also distributing hundreds of bottles of mineral water to the population. And just to let you know how this all happened, the city's severe flooding damaged the water treatment facility over the weekend, causing the plant to fail. And low water pressure has led to many residents struggling for their basic needs. A boiling water advisory is in effect for more than 150 50,000 people across the city since July. Now there is also concern low pressure is insufficient for firefighting or even for flushing toilets. This is not the first time Mississippi's capital have experienced a water crisis. Many residents say this is a problem that's been grossly ignored. The city, where 80% of the population is black and poverty is rife, has been experiencing recurring water crisis for years. As climate change continues to wreak havoc on water and weather systems around the country, what's happening in Jackson may be a glimpse of things to come. And to Pakistan, where UN humanitarians are warning that the scale of the humanitarian crisis in Pakistan is unprecedented, with a third of the country underwater. Hajira Bibi and her child, only 10 days old. The pain has only just begun. They returned to their village in the northwest of the country to find her home unlivable. Take a look.
دا ماشومه وړه وه چې دا ما ځان سره واړه څلورو ورځو وه چې مونږ د موټروې ته وختو په مونږ باندې سیلاب راغی زه بیمار وم او بره ناست وو دې ګرمۍ او نورونو ته وایي چې زمونږ دا کور دونه سم شي چې مونږ خپل کور ته ځو ځکه چې بغیر پکې به بار سملو او ماشین دي تکلیف هم وي راته او ټول ماشومان هم ګډ وډ دي پراته دي نو چې خپل کور ته لاړ شو نو دا به ښه چې سم شي راته
تیاره خو دا چې د اوبه تېرې شوي او هغه خامخا ډېرې ګنده اوبه راغلي دي او اوبه څښا دي او په ټولو ماشومانو دانې راختلي دي او نور هم خرابېږي
تکلیف خو ماته ډېر زیات و باره چې زه ختمه ځکه چې څلورو ورځو څه ده زما ډېر زیات تکلیف و ماته چې زه باره ختمه لکه زه په خپله نیم ختلی زه چا وهېجولم دونه تکلیف و ماته.
This country, which had a higher level of stunting, already the same areas that are impacted now are the same areas that are now flooded. And the anticipation is with waterborne diseases, diarrhea, cholera, all the diseases you can imagine will hit and quite soon. So we need to be in place to respond to those as well.
Affected people have told our staff on the ground about their traumatic and scarring experiences as rain and floodwaters swept away their possessions in minutes. Those who could rushed to safety on higher ground without being able to rescue their belongings.
We have a major problem within the region and a particular global challenge in ensuring that the wherewithal, the support that is going to be necessary to get agricultural production back up and running in Pakistan to feed its own people, as well as being the continued source of supply of food for colleagues and brethren next door in Afghanistan.
Monsoon rains have submerged a third of Pakistan, claiming at least 1,190 lives since June and unleashing powerful floods that have washed away swathes of vital crops and damaged or destroyed more than 1 million homes. And authorities have been blaming climate change, which is increasing the frequency and strength of extreme weather events around the world. And England had its joint hottest summer on record this year, tied with 2018. More details from our correspondent from the United Kingdom, Patricia Rodriguez. Pat.
The country's meteorological agency said England had its joint hottest summer on record this year, tied with 2018. The agency just unveiled its provisional mean temperature statistics for the 3-month period. England also smashed its all-time temperature record in July when the mercury topped 40 degrees Celsius for the first time ever, while July was the driest on record across the south. Detailing the seasonal period starting in June, the Met Office, whose records date back to 1884, confirmed England's mean temperature of 17.1 degrees Celsius was the joint warmest ever, equaling the summer of 4 years ago. The hottest and driest areas relative to the average, with East Anglia and parts of Northeast England seeing their warmest summer on record. Across the entire UK, which also includes Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, it was provisionally the 4th warmest summer. The top British summers, all in the last 2 decades, were all very close in temperature, with the 2 hottest ever averaging 15.8 degrees and the 2 second hottest 15.7 degrees. This means that 4 of the 5 warmest summers on record for England have occurred since 2003, as the effects of human-induced climate change are felt on England's summer temperatures, the Met Office noted.
Today is really hot, and honestly I woke up at like 10 o'clock in the morning and I got out my bed and I opened the window, right, and it was literally so hot. The sun through my window was like burning my skin, right? It wasn't that bad, but I put my sun cream on, I got out the house, and then it got even worse. So, and like, you know, me as like a British person, it's like not, you don't get this a lot, right? So I was like, you know, I wasn't ready for it, wasn't prepared. And
yeah, I've lived here for 10 years. I can definitely say this summer is definitely the hottest. I don't know if we just walked through Parker's Piece. During this time of the year, it's supposed to be green, all of it, just full of greenery. It's literally brown. So that is pure definition of global warming.
This year's parched conditions have had an impact across England, notably with the source of the River Thames drying up and shifting several miles downstream.
Well, we're started our holiday to walk the Thames path, and we started at Thames Head at the start of today's morning, and we haven't found the Thames yet. As you can see, it's completely dried up all the way. The odd puddle, the odd muddy bit, no flow anywhere so far. So hopefully downstream we'll find the Thames, but at the moment it's gone.
Yeah, probably most times of the year, and we see the river when it's quite full and flowing quite strongly. There's often barriers with fallen leaves and fallen logs in the river that stop the flow, but elsewhere it flows really strongly. Not all the time, but we've never seen it as dry and as empty as this, I don't think.
Satellite imagery has shown the nation's traditionally green and lush countryside turning to various shades of yellow and brown as huge swaths of south, central, and eastern England dried out. Some water companies have imposed restrictions on water use, including hosepipe bans with the lack of rainfall and punishing heat depleting rivers, reservoirs, and groundwater levels. Thames Water, which supplies 15 million people in London and some surrounding areas, introduced a hosepipe ban in area from August 24, in first such restriction in the British capital in a decade. Severe heat waves made hotter and more frequent by climate change are already being felt beyond Britain and across the world, threatening human health, wildlife, and crop yields. This is Patricia Rodriguez, Bureau of London, United Kingdom. We live in extraordinary times.
And with temperatures hitting over 100 degrees Fahrenheit for several days, the municipality of Los Angeles has opened cooling centers in low-income neighborhoods, providing air conditioning and bottled water to residents. Take a look.
And it's really hot outside, especially for those little kids who can't really handle the heat wave as much as older people can. So
it needs to get to about 100, 105. Once that hits that peak, and we know it's hitting that peak because we're in communication with the National Weather Service, then the plans we have for adverse weather kick in and we begin rallying the troops, getting the supplies, making sure which centers can be open and that we have enough.
The centers have been established in libraries, recreation and park facilities, and senior living facilities, offering shelter in air-conditioned rooms and cold drinks during the heat of the day. Forecasters have issued an excessive heat warning for most of California, as well as parts of Nevada and Arizona, with thermometers logging highs of over 110 degrees Fahrenheit in some places. The heat dome is expected to last well into next week, with thermometers set to peak at 116 degrees Fahrenheit in some densely populated areas around Los Angeles over the Labor Day holiday weekend. The operator of California's breaking or creaking electricity grid on Friday called a third consecutive flex alert, asking households to conserve power and turn up their thermostats to help reduce power demand. Meanwhile, a magnitude 5.8 earthquake struck Greece today, according to the European Mediterranean Seismological Center. Take a look. Now, there were no reports of injuries to people or damage to structures. The quake, which struck at 7:13 a.m., had its epicenter in the sea 30 kilometers south-southeast of the town of Zakros in Lassiti Prefecture. The focal depth of the tremor was 4.7 kilometers. Earthquake was felt in many parts of Crete. The earthquake was felt but also not only in many areas of eastern Crete, but also in the island's capital of Iraklio. Former President Donald Trump's former Attorney General said the U.S. government appeared justified in raiding the former president's home to recover classified materials and that he suspected they have good evidence of obstruction. Legal pressure on Trump has ratcheted up since the FBI's August 8 raid, with details emerging of documents labeled secret improperly stored at his Mar-a-Lago resort home in Florida. According to his team, delaying authorities access to the material and then falsely claiming they had turned over all classified papers. Take a look. For them to have taken things to the current point, they probably have good evidence, Bill Barr, who led the Justice Department in the latter half of the Trump administration, said on Fox News. He said if they clearly have the president moving stuff around, hiding stuff in his desk, and telling people to dissemble with the government, they may be inclined to bring that case, he said. Barr spoke after a Florida court filing by the Justice Department detailed what the Federal Bureau of Investigation retrieved in its raid on the former president's estate, which is also an exclusive club for Jews-paying members. The filing showed highly classified government documents, including some marked top secret, were discovered in his personal office 2 months after Trump's attorneys told justice officials in a sworn certification that there were no more classified materials on the premises. The detailed list of what was seized August 8 also showed Trump held on to more than 11,000 unclassified government records that he claims are his to keep, but legally are owned by the National Archives. People say this was unprecedented, Barr said of the raid. Well, it's also unprecedented for a president to take all this classified information and put them in a country club. The list appeared to provide support for the Justice Department's probe. In their warrant for the raid, they cited the Espionage Act, which forbids the retention and sharing of highly sensitive documents pertaining to national defense, the law against obstructing investigation, and a law against destruction of government documents. Among the papers seized were 18 documents labeled top secret, 53 labeled secret, and another 31 marked confidential. And of those 7 top secret files, 17 secret files and 3 confidential files were retrieved from his private office. Agents also found several dozen empty folders labeled classified in the office, raising speculation that sensitive documents may have been lost, destroyed, or moved. Much of what agents found there and in a separate storeroom was intermixed in boxes with Trump's personal legal files, clothing, gifts, and books gathered in his final days in the White House in January 2021. In tonight's other news, the EU's drug regulator has approved COVID-19 vaccines by Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna adapted for the Omicron variant, paving the way for a booster campaign this winter. Take a look.
Coming to the recent recommendations, 2 new safe and effective adaptive vaccines have been added to the portfolio of vaccines available in the European Union. Adaptive vaccines are designed to present our immune system with different strains of the SARS-CoV-2 virus in order to expand the immune response, especially towards strains that have been circulating recently. The data we have evaluated confirm that vaccines have a similar safety profile as the original ones. Also, the data are showing that both vaccines trigger strong immune responses against the Omicron BA.1 and the original virus in people previously vaccinated. In particular, they were more effective at triggering immune responses against the BA.1 subvariant than the original vaccines. With a virus that is evolving quickly, it is not possible to predict which variants will be circulating this autumn and winter. It is not excluded that new emerging variants later this year may be closer to BA2 than BA5, or there might be a completely new variant emerging that we are not able to predict today. Therefore, the EU strategy is to have a broad range of updated vaccines so member states have a plurality of options to meet their needs when they design their vaccination strategies.
Vigilance and our Chief Medical Officer.
And after technical issues halted its first launch attempt, NASA will try again today or Saturday U.S. time to get its new 30-story rocket off the ground and send its unmanned test capsule towards the moon. Take a look.
Right now, if we launch tomorrow afternoon, we would land on October 11th at 11:10 Pacific time. So that kind of gives you the duration, and what we would say is it's approximately 37 days to 38 days, depending on kind of where you choose to draw those lines.
If something requires NASA to stand down again on Saturday, there are backup opportunities on Monday or Tuesday. After that, the next launch window will not be until September 19 at the earliest due to the moon's position. The purpose of the Artemis 1 mission is to verify that the Orion capsule, which sits atop the SLS rocket, is safe to carry astronauts in the future. Mannequins equipped with sensors are standing in for astronauts on the mission and will record acceleration, vibration, and radiation levels. NASA has also been working to correct the technical difficulties that led to the last-minute delay of the launch during its originally scheduled window Monday. At first, it seemed that one of the rocket's 4 main engines was too hot, though it turned out just to be a reading from a bad sensor. The rocket's program manager, John Honeycutt, said on Thursday. Now, in the future, the incorrect information will simply be ignored. And the James Webb Space Telescope has taken its first image of an exoplanet, a planet outside our solar system, as astronomers hail the device's performance since its launch last year. Take a look. And finally, a city in Texas is celebrating National Farmers Week with locally grown produce. Jane Kathleen Gregorio from our Corpus Christi, Texas Bureau reports.
It's National Farmers Market Week, and in honor of this event, today we are visiting a local farmers market here in Corpus Christi, Texas, where we will explore the fresh products produced by local farmers and local businesses. Let's go check it out. Did you know that farmers markets help to stimulate local economies? According to a report by the U.S. Department of Agriculture in 2020, over $1.7 billion of direct-to-consumer sales were due to farmers markets and on-farm stores. For every $1 million of revenue earned, growers selling locally are able to create 13 full-time farm operator jobs. In Corpus Christi, the Grow Local Farmers Market event takes place every Wednesday evening at the Art Center of South Texas.
The farmers market has been going on for the last 10 years. The Grow Local South Texas, the nonprofit, has been in existence for the last 9 years. And this is a way to provide nutritionally dense food to our community. We've recently become approved by USDA to become a SNAP market, and we're getting ready to launch that pretty soon.
We are a Gulf Grove farm, so we have some vegan zucchini brand. We also have slices, pickle slices. We have sweet and spicy. We have dill spears, spicy spears. We also have a fermented hot sauce. So we take fresh peppers and ferment them and make a hot sauce out of them.
We have our kettle corn. We use GMO popcorn, sea salt, organic sugar, and soybean oil. So it's all natural. And we try to stay the healthy part of the popcorn game.
Markets are important because it gives us the chance to meet people who we wouldn't meet otherwise. A lot of people don't know that coffee roasteries are really a thing. Coffee is one of those things I feel like people take granted for a lot. It's a whole art form. I mean, we spend hours every day just figuring out better ways to create better coffee for our community. So it's great to be able to just have conversations and introduce people to the specialty coffee world here at the farmers market.
My mother, Betsy Marin, runs the business. She makes all this. It's brittle. We go by Buddy Sweet Gem. She makes 7 flavors of brittle. She does fudge, praline, sugared pecans, and we have many flavors, and we have samples of everything if you want to try anything.
My experience in the farmers market was amazing. There's so many things to try. There's jams and jellies. There's tons of clothes. And there's tons of organic foods.
There's still ways that you can support your local farmer. So the best thing to do would be to let your friends know, let your families know that we're here every week and we don't stop year-round, rain, snow, extreme heat. We're always here.
Jane Catherine Gregorio, Eagle News, Corpus Christi, Texas. We live in extraordinary times.
Thanks, Kathleen. And as always, I'll end the day on a thoughtful note. Our ability to look back and smile at our past is proof that God's plan is to keep us moving forward. This has been Eagle News International. I'm Alma Angeles. Stay alert and stay informed because we live in extraordinary times. Good night.
Ngayong linggo sa Cine Throwback.